Hello, welcome back to Underrated Movies. I'm your guy, I'm your man, Alton Henry Sweet Cinema. And tonight, I'm going to talk to you about another film that I happen to watch. I've seen at the theater. I just, I've seen at the theater. I'm here to let you know that I've seen it like a decade ago, so the movie's old. So, just letting you know it's available to watch for free on YouTube, which it's actually a very underrated film. Otherwise, I wouldn't be recommending it to you. It's a gritty film, a very dark and not a happy film at all. It's Brooklyn's Finest, starring Richard Gere, Don Cheadle, Wesley Snipes, and Ethan Hawke. Basically about three officers crossing paths with one another, dealing with police brutality, drugs, prostitution. They're all each individual is dealing with their own personal lives, their own personal struggles, and it's basically three intertwined stories that pretty much takes place at a big event that happens in the third act. So that's kind of basically what the film is about. Just three officers, their stories intertwine, and it resolves around in the third act, big conclusion, kind of. And it's not related to Jay Z's song, but I think it might be part of the soundtrack of the film. I'm not sure. I think so. Think so. Um, and what I really wanted to try to sell you this movie is that it tries to be a little bit different. Maybe not to a fault, because really there's things in the film that's we've seen in other crime, gritty dramas that tries to be, you know, the kind of crime film that tries to be out there. Cursing, violence, sex, and all that shit. I'm just letting you know now. This film is no different, but what it tries to do differently just the different stories that intertwine. And that's actually, I thought that was very unique. It kept the film. I was very invested in it. I was invested in each character's stories, their struggles, what they've gone through, and a lot of it actually was really good. I mean, I have no complaints really about the film. Um, though revisiting the film, I do acknowledge there are stereotypes that are brought in the film, especially if it's a crime film set in the dirtiest places in the city. The film takes place in Brooklyn. That's the title, Brooklyn's Finest, and you have just crooked people, or I don't say crooked people. You just have certain communities doing certain things that you've seen in films, portrayed in films, and in the film. Performances are phenomenal. Each actor delivers on their A game, which really brings me to a thought about Wesley Snipes. Even though he hasn't been getting much work these days, that dude is a very underrated actor. And honestly, I need to go back and watch some of his earlier films, mostly his action films, and I feel bad for not really taking the time to show interest in his movies. Um, because from what I've seen as an actor and also as a martial artist, the guy is amazing. It's a shame though, but the guy is freaking amazing, and I actually miss seeing him on screen in some of these big profile movies, because this guy, if given the right material, this guy is great. He was even funny in that film, Dolomite. The Dolomite is my name. He didn't have a big role in there, but he was funny. He actually stole certain scenes in there. This guy was fantastic. Plays a drug dealer who gets out of prison. He's kind of trying to turn his I wouldn't say his life around, but he kind of has a new optimistic approach of how he wants to kind of do things. He has a strong friendship bond with Don Cheadle's character, who's actually an undercover cop who's trying to bring him down, who's conflicted in this position of wanting to bring down his friend, or he doesn't want to, but it's part of his job as an undercover cop to get promoted. But he would also be betraying that friendship that he grew attached to with Wesley Snipes' character. And then you have Ethan Hawke's character, who's a cop who's pretty much struggling financially. His wife is bringing in new kids. Basically, he can't afford to have those kids. He's behind his bills and he's struggling. And he's trying to figure out the best way to accumulate money in the fastest way, which is raiding out these drug dealing houses or these places and just basically stealing drug money. And he'll kill whoever he has to do in order to do it. And the guy becomes very, I would say sadistic, but he becomes very possessed in trying to do what he has to do, trying to get that money. And then you have Richard Gere's story, who's a guy, a cop who's on his last 7 days on the job, and the film takes into a span of 7 days. I think chronicling Richard Gere's soon to be retirement in the film. His character is suicidal, and there's a few moments in the film. Actually, the first time you see him, he kind of commits suicide or tries to commit suicide, and then he tries it again later in the film. That the guy basically has no hope. He feels like he's not really wanted around. He's just trying to get by, not in the healthiest way. There's actually an alternate ending I remember watching on DVD, where he actually goes through with it, and I can see why they cut it. Because the way the film ends and concludes with all these characters kind of intertwining with one another, and then how it concludes, you kind of want to have a little hope. I mean, I'm cool for the downer ending, but just this film, there's never really a happy moment until the ending. And there's not a happy moment till the ending at all, and it really kind of gets you just like, man, down and dirty. Actually, sometimes the movie kind of gets you like really, I wouldn't say depressed, but it gets you very just, I don't know, just maybe a little bit disgusted that this happens in, I guess, in reality from what I'm understanding in the film. Surprisingly, Logan Marshall Green was in the film too. He played a cop who joins Richard Gere, who tours him a bit, but unfortunately his character, I think, gets killed off screen. Which that guy is a very underrated actor. If you guys seen Upgrade, I recommend giving Upgrade. But I think this film has one of the best third acts ever to any film, where you have these guys just basically intertwining, and it's actually kind of neat that they don't really meet; they just bump into one another here and there, and then once their fates kind of arrive at this one location at this apartment complex. They each of them have their own reasons of being there. One of them is to rescue prostitutes. The other one is to go after money, and the other one is going after revenge. And it's so unique how these three characters, how their stories basically intertwine, and it actually enhances the story, the overall story, the themes of how these issues with police brutality, drugs, and the lack of support system that people go through in their psyche, how it all affects them and how it all comes together. And the film really is saying something about those things. And I really, really enjoyed the film. I really, really dug the film. And I think this is one of the most underrated films that Anton Fuqua has done. Yeah, that's the director's name. And actually, that guy is an underrated filmmaker. I don't think he's given a lot of credit. He's actually one of my favorite filmmakers to do action films or just films. This guy knows what he's doing, and he's actually a little of an inspiration. The guy has directed Tears of the Sun, The Equalizer 1 and 2. He's done the recent remake of The Guilty, um, and Shooter with Mark Wahlberg. This guy is underrated. He's a good director. Um, I don't really have any flaws with this film at all. I think it's a near perfect film, though it does fall into the trap of certain cliche. Um, I would say maybe just cliche traits of what is a crime film during this time of crooked cops, drugs, and you can kind of see that kind of those kind of movies stopped a while ago. You don't really see much of those films anymore. Where it also kind of does a what's the word? It doesn't portray a good image of being cops at all. All right, and maybe after those ongoing movies, after they kind of died out a bit, where it kind of betrayed after it kind of gave negative portrayals of cops, and I could kind of see why some of those films disappear. I actually like those films. I actually like some of these crime films, like that, Departed, Street Kings. But this one right here, I highly recommend it. Everybody does a great job in the film. I was surprised. I thought the writing of it was really good as well, and I was really surprised just how well that Anton Fuqua was able to mix each character's stories together. And I really liked how it wrapped up. And I just love that. I love that bleak and grittiness to it, especially when it comes with action, because you don't know what to expect when it comes to it. Like it's very suspenseful, and I love action scenes. I love vibes of movies like that that tries to capture this bleakness to it. Especially if they try to go for an action setting. There's only a few films I could think of that does that, but when this film gets really intense, I can guarantee you it gets really intense. And this is one of those films I think just got overshadowed a lot um, by other films in 2010, or just in general. Because this was one of my favorite films that came out that year. And really, some of it might be a little bit hard to watch. There were a few moments in the film where, especially with Richard Gere's story, where he basically he's in love, or I won't say he's in love. He's trying to find connection with a prostitute, and that doesn't really end too well. It doesn't end too well for him. It's just disappointment. Um, yeah. It gets pretty dark at certain points in the film, and you kind of have to just go along with the ride. No pun intended. But this film was really good. I really enjoyed it. It was a really good crime film. I highly recommend for those who have seen it film to kind of revisit it and kind of appreciate just how different it tries to be. I remember the original. I'm gonna say the original title. I guess when this film was released in Japan, they renamed the film called Crossing, and it kind of made sense. Really, you just because basically these characters just cross paths with one another, and their destinies. Well, some of them may not be good, but eventually their paths cross at this one specific destination towards the end. And I thought the film was really, really cool. Really great. Please check it out if you've seen it. Let me know in the comment section below what you thought about the film. Like, subscribe, give me a comment, and let me know what is your favorite underrated movie.